All right, guys, I want to talk to you today about ways that you can lower or keep your cost as low as possible when you have a young driver. So let's get into it. The first biggest thing that I'm going to tell you that you need to do is make sure that you list them on your policy. That is the first thing you have to do. There's a misconception because there's a lot of people that think you can lend your vehicle to your young driver, and that is not the case. That is not what permissive use is, that people misrepresent all the time. So if they are in your household, you have to list them as a driver on your policy. So that's the first thing you have to do, and that's where everybody gets in a little bit of a tizzy, because when you do this, guess what? Your rate increases, and it usually increases a decent amount. But there are ways, and this is what we're going to talk about, that you can mitigate that or lower that rate as much as you possibly can. So let's talk a few of those things. One of the biggest discounts for young drivers is good grades. So if your young driver has a B average or better, you get a pretty good discount for that. You can whenever you add them to your policy, you can tell your agent that, and that should get you a pretty good discount. But you do have to give some kind of documentation, whether it's a most recent report card or whatever they do to track their grades. If you get that to them, they should be able to apply that to your policy and make sure that they get to keep that discount. So good grades is one of the biggest discounts you can have with young drivers. So the next thing I want to talk to you about, the next tip for helping you save a little bit of money, or at least trying to keep that cost down for having a young driver on your policy, is the kind of vehicle that you add to your policy if you're adding a vehicle for your young driver. So this is where a lot of people, I feel like, can make some mistakes, because a lot of times you end up having set in your mind a certain kind of vehicle that you want your child to have for their first vehicle. That's great, but if you're worried about the insurance or the cost of the insurance, you need to put a little bit more thought into this part of it. So if you add a vehicle that's going to require full coverage insurance, so comprehensive and collision, then you're going to have a higher insurance cost. Just no matter what you do, adding a full coverage vehicle onto that policy is going to cause your insurance to increase. It would anyways, but whenever you pair that with adding a young driver with it, it magnifies that increase. So if you can get a good, reliable vehicle, maybe that's a little older, maybe close to 10 years older, something that maybe doesn't require comprehensive and collision, it may be something that just requires comprehensive or just liability only. That will significantly help you on the cost of that insurance for your young driver. So, and I understand if you don't want to do that. I understand if you're wanting to get a newer vehicle, that's fine. But again, I'm just telling you, as far as trying to help you reduce the cost of that insurance, that will help you out tremendously. All right, guys, so the last tip I'm going to give you, and it has to do with a service that most insurance companies offer. It's either through an app, through a device, through their platform somehow that you can sign up for, to where your driving habits are monitored. And this will actually give you a pretty good discount. Sometimes it could be anywhere from 5-10%, maybe even a little bit more, just depending on the company. But just for signing up for this service, you get that discount. And a lot of times, a lot of companies don't really have any negative impact for signing up for it after the fact. There might be a period where you let them monitor your driving habits, and after that period it goes away. Some do an ongoing tracking. Just depends on the company. They all work a little different, so you have to check with your agent on that just to see kind of how each one of those works. But again, this is going to help you out, save some money on your insurance, especially if you're adding that young driver. But you can also kind of use it to your advantage, and you can tell your young driver, hey, you're being monitored, so you better be careful how you drive. So anyways, guys, that's some tips that I'm hopefully helps you out. If you got a young driver, if you're about to have a young driver, maybe you can think about what your next steps are with your insurance and what kind of vehicles you get. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you out.